All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our last and final session as part of our 2-day mini institute as a continuation of the Abolitionist Youth Organizing Institute that we at Project Mia have been hosting for the past week and a half, almost 2 weeks. We just finished in the middle of this week working with a cohort of almost 60 young people from across the country, delving into topics around PIC abolition, organizing, restorative justice, transformative justice, and really thinking about what does safety in our communities look like in living and existing in and working towards a police, a prison, and surveillance-free world. And we're super excited to have Destiney and Kyla from Sunrise Movement today, talking to us about the intersections of abolition and environmental justice. And before we get into the session and I turn things over to them, I do just want to take a moment to get us grounded in the space, whether you're joining from our YouTube live stream or on the Zoom, and let you know who's in the room with us. So I do want to start by, again, just showing gratitude to our fiscal sponsor, Lux Factory, for making the Institute happen this year and supporting us in that. And also the Barnard Center for Research on Women for supporting us with the live stream. Shout out to Hope and Sophie who are helping us with that. And also in the room is myself. I'm the youth training coordinator for Project Mia. My name is Allison. We also have Paige, who is our Clarice Dunham Fellow, who is supporting with collecting resources for y'all in the chat and transferring them into our Padlet, which I'll share a little bit more about later. We also have Ebene holding down our tech support, and our amazing interpreters, Juan, Trisha, and Cameron, and also our captioner for live closed captions, Teddy Jackson. I encourage you, if you do need access to either closed captions or ASL interpretation, and you're watching from our live stream on YouTube, there's an email in the description that you can reach out to so that you can get the Zoom link, because our interpretation and captioning is more accessible in the Zoom. So strongly encourage those folks to reach out. And we'll also have graphic notes at the close of our session from Laura Chaweeb of Radical Roadmaps. Very exciting. So just want to briefly remind folks of the values that we're holding in this space during our time together. There may be a few that you pick to really center and ground you during our time in this space together. And also our commitments, and really honing in from this space of like coming through with curiosity, and intention around listening and listening deeply, and seeking deeper questions, and asking those questions together while we're in space here. And then also want to uplift to folks our agreements. We're here for 3 hours. Kyla and Destiney have so generously built in some amazing extensive breaks for us so we can be sure that we're nourishing ourselves, tending to ourselves. And I encourage you to do that on your own as well. Take breaks when you need it, get water, hydrate, eat, stretch, all of those things. And a reminder for folks that you can access resources that are shared today during this session and from the previous sessions of the Mini Institute and the larger Institute at our Institute Padlet. Click the link and there's a lot of resources, graphic notes, and session materials for you to be able to explore. And with that, I am going to turn it over to our amazing facilitators for today, Kyla and Destiney. So excited to be with y'all in this space, and give them the spaciousness to really get us grounded before we delve more deeply into like our topics for today, and also introduce them, share themselves, share their context for showing up in this work. And so I'm going to stop my screen share and give them space to share with us. Thanks, y'all.
Hi, hello, y'all. I'm so glad to be in this space with y'all. Although I cannot see y'all's face, I'm excited, and I bet y'all are probably here, or why else would you be? So really glad to just be with y'all. My name is Destiney Mack, and my pronouns are she, her. And I currently reside on Titolo, Saponi, and Kiwaki land in North Carolina, on the East Coast. And yeah, this is really, really glad to be with y'all. And pass it to you, Kyla.
Hi, everybody. My name is Kyla. I use she, her pronouns. I am also super excited. I am on Lumbee and Shakori land, also known as Durham, North Carolina, where dreams come true. And I am super excited to talk to y'all. And I wish I could see your faces, but let's get ready.
Awesome. So I'm really glad y'all are here. Today, we're talking about how these systems have never worked for us through the design and looking at the intersections of environmental justice and abolition. And if we could share on the screen a little picture of us, just in case you wanted to see our smiles even more. Yeah, this is what we look like. Yeah, one day we'll be in person, hopefully, to maybe have different webinars like this. But yeah, this is what we look like. And next, we are going to also be acknowledging more in the land in which we both reside in North Carolina. Pass you, Kyla.
Awesome. So we know we are on stolen land, and we recognize the genocide of indigenous people. And just want to remind, I'm on Lumbee and Shakori land, and I'm going to drop in the chat a link where you can look up what land you're on. You can put like your actual address. Let me drop it to everyone, and it'll show you what lane you're on. And I would love for people to put their name, their pronouns, and what land they're on in the chat. Also want to note that the environmental justice movement started in Warren County, North Carolina, with mostly rural, poor Black people, which is still what Warren County is made of. And on this map, you can see different communities of indigenous people and land in North Carolina. And so I want to give folks a moment to check out that website and drop in the chat any land that you're on. And I'll give us like 1 minute. Hi, Matthew. I see that you're calling in on Narragansett land, Providence, Rhode Island. Glad to be here. I'm glad you're here too. We have Long Island, New York, Massapequas. Please keep dropping it in the chat from Piscataway and Coastal land, DC. MK and on Lebanon land, NYC. We have a hi from Emine. Lucien, they, he, currently on Lebanon land, excited for this session. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much. Continue to do that, as well as put your pronouns in the chat. And if you don't know what pronouns are, it's basically what you would like to be referred to if you left the room. So if I left the room and you didn't want to, you didn't know my name or want to say my name, I would want to be referred to as she. So she left the room. So whatever you feel comfortable with being referred to. And keep putting it in the chat. You can move to the next slide now, please. I'm gonna go over what we're gonna talk about today. So we just did the opening and the land acknowledgement. Then we're gonna go in a little bit of Sunrise history, and then talk about environmental injustice and environmental justice. Then we'll have a break. Then we'll talk some about abolition in the prison industrial complex, the PIC. We'll go into a specific campaign, No New Jails, New York City. We'll have another break. And then we'll go into the intersections and landing. Bottom line, we'll have a few minutes for questions and answers, and then we will close. So that is our roadmap for today. And I will pass it to Destiney to talk a little bit about Sunrise and our history.
Cool. Thanks, Kyla. So Sunrise came out of 12 people working together for about 5 years ago, I believe. Not the greatest on math right now, but hey, and those people came together out of working on pipeline fights, working on fossil fuel divestment, building state networks, and really trying to hone us in power through against pipelines and fossil fuels. So Sunrise came through and wanted to build a mass movement to face the climate crisis that we all are impacted by today, and have been in a transition and since the founding, reckoning with the successes and failures of the climate movement, and what that path could look like for us inside of Sunrise, and what our role is to continue to fight towards a Green New Deal, and also infrastructure that supports a livable future for all people. And we've done different actions all across the United States. One that was a huge lunch in a lot of membership and just power and a desire to continue with organizing with Sunrise is an action that happened where organizers came and sat in Nancy Pelosi's office, calling for support on a Green New Deal. Hopefully some of y'all have seen our actions or our work, or even have heard of us. I bet you probably have. But if not, please, continue to look into Sunrise Movement if you want to. I'm at sunrisemovement.org. So that's a little bit about the Sunrise Movement. And now we're going to transition to talking about environmental justice. And this is a slide that I shared about what I just said, and I'm going to read the slide as well. It is a photo from young organizers marching from all the way from New Orleans to Houston a few months ago. And it reads, "We are young people uniting to make climate change an urgent priority across America, and end the corrupting influence of fossil fuel executives on our politics, and elect leaders who will stand up for the health and well-being of all people." In summary of what we're doing at the Sunrise Movement. So great transition into environmental justice. So there's a few questions on the next slide that I want to pose to everyone. And what it says is, what does the environment look like in your community? What is a local environmental justice fight where you are? And what do you think about when you hear environmental injustice? So unfortunately, we cannot be in a very long dialogue with each other, but want to use another method where we can be interactive with each other called Padlet. And we're going to use Padlet to answer these questions. And we're going to drop the URL inside of the chat so everyone will be able to open it. And once you open it, you'll see at the very bottom on the right of the screen a plus sign where you can then add a post. And I would love if people took some time to just respond with what does environment look like in your community? And with the Padlet, you can add photos, and you can add text, GIFs, and any way you want to describe what the environment looks like in your community. Or you can also drop it in the chat if that's more accessible. People are typing, nice. I'm gonna start reading them. Oh, the beautiful picture, where is that? Could we screen share the Padlet? Beautiful. Cool. Great, so we are seeing some pictures in here. I come from India, and there is again widespread criminalization of indigenous communities or the Adivasi community. Sorry if I have chopped that. So, and to be continued, let's keep seeing what gets typed there. We're seeing Providence, Rhode Island. This is a photo of Allen's Ave, which is a main street in South Providence. And has a ton of heavy industry. Wow, look at this. So these are the questions. What does the environment look like in your community? What is a local environmental justice fight where you are? What do you think about when you hear environmental injustice? Military containment of hundreds of millions of gallons of jet fuel in Hawaii. It's been leaking into the nearby groundwater 100 feet away. Wow. Yeah. Thanks y'all so much for sharing. When I hear environmental injustice, I think about colonization as, ooh, and it moved. Where did it go? Oh, where did it go? As well as, yeah, excessive tourism. There we go, found it. A picture is one. Two, there are constructions being made in areas where animals naturally live, totally. And for the third question about what do you think about when you hear environmental justice, someone type something that bites us when we least expect it. I felt on that one. Thank y'all so much for participating and sharing, yeah, your answers to those questions. We're going to continue to use Padlet so we can, yeah, see what we're thinking as a collective, get to know each other, and use different ways of communication. Thanks, y'all. So getting into a lot of what has already been typed out for so many different examples of environmental injustice in the what people have shared of like what they think about it. According to the Environmental Protection Agency, environmental justice means civil treatment and meaningful involvement of all people, regardless of national origin, color, race, or income, with admiration to the development, exercise, and application of environmental laws, regulations, and policies. In summary, in my own wording of what environmental justice means to me is regardless of any part of your identity where you live should never be taken advantage of, regardless of any development or desires based off of profit. But hey, you know, that's not in the dictionary. But hey, in summary, that's what it means to me. So yeah, we're also wanting to look at environmental racism, which is used to represent environmental injustice that transpires in practice and policy within the context of race. So a lot of what we're going to be talking about in regards to environmental injustice deals with environmental racism. And we will definitely get into more of a detailed example later. So yeah, there is such a deep history with the environmental justice movement. For so many people, the environment really means, you know, like not only where I live and where I work, but also like the places that I just want to enjoy for my own pleasures. And we could stop screen sharing now and allow participants to see our faces. Hey y'all. But yeah, so according to Race, Poverty in the Environment, a reimagined National Journal of Social and Environmental Justice that was founded in 1990, there has just been such a rich history of African people, Latinx people, Native, Asian Americans, and people from all across in different, like countries and on different continents, having a very similar experience about the environment in which they live in, and issues that, like are man-made or man-decided, or not man, but human-made and human-decided. And as we learn more about the world we live in as people of color, our perspective of the environment for many is crafted from the recognition of like the social atmosphere that we live in, the color of our skin, as well as economic justice. And the definition that emerged from the reference that I had earlier of the reimagined National Journal that had a convening of 300 people all across of different identities of people of color, is that deeply rooted, the history of environmental justice and the environmental movement that I've taken away from that article is deeply rooted in art and spirituality, is where the environmental justice has like been founded in. And that is through living close to pipelines, the water being polluted, air being polluted, still being very deeply in practice of art and spirituality. And that the aspects of environmental justice, like I said earlier, include all places, the places that we live, the places that we work, and the places that we have fun. And I'm gonna pass it to Kyla so we can get into the design of how our communities, or at least the community that I've lived in before, have those harms I felt in the environment that I've lived in.
Awesome. Thank you, Destiney, for giving us so much history. The reality is that this country was founded on, this country's history is genocide of Native people and maintaining the status quo of white supremacy through slavery, Jim Crow laws, Japanese internment, and numerous other injustices. Throughout history, race has been the primary factor in deciding who was allowed to live, where they were allowed to live, what jobs they had access to, and what education quality they had. Generations of individuals and institutions have been conditioned to fear and devalue Black and Brown and poor working class folks, and the land these communities reside in is not worthy of that investment. We feel the impacts of these approaches and strategies work together to uphold segregation, racism, anti-Blackness, and white supremacy. And as we know, our discriminatory history isn't only something of the past, but something that we're experiencing right now, and will be experiencing in the near future. I want to go into an example of redlining. And, oh, yes, perfect. If you could share, perfect, thank you so much. And yes, in the US, the location of Black and Brown communities near pollution sources like fossil fuel plants come from racist government policies known as redlining, which began in the 1930s. Redlining is refining the illegal practice of denying services to communities of color. So on this slide, we have a map of Durham, North Carolina, where I live. Um, and we also have loans on the side. It's really, really tiny, so I know you can't read it, but want to go more into what this map means. So during the Great Depression, families were struggling to make ends meet and were defaulting on their mortgages. In response, federal agencies started providing government-backed mortgages to help families build wealth through the Depression. Government agencies work with bankers and realtors to create maps to identify which neighborhoods to invest in based on credit risk. Historically, housing created a grading system based on several factors like housing quality, but the primary indicator of risk was race. The neighbors were graded based on the color code that you can see in this map. So green means best, blue means still desirable, yellow meant definitely declining, and red means hazardous. Areas that were redlined, so the red areas, were seen as credit risk because of the presence of people of color. So to redline communities meant to racially discriminate people out of opportunities to own homes and build interracial wealth and stability. And if you can share the interactive map on screen, I will go more into these areas in Durham and how they're still being affected from this redlining. Okay, awesome. So, wait, let me get my glasses together. Okay. So, right over, if you can see the Hayti area and the Durham Freeway, which is, thank you, circling, which is a historically Black neighborhood, which has a freeway that came right in the middle, which is just breaking up. This freeway, Highway 147, used to not be here. And they built a highway right in the middle of this area, as well as there's a neighborhood called MacDougall Terrace, which is low income housing, which has been in Durham, I believe, since at least the 1950s, and has experienced extreme underfunding and is still continually experiencing underfunding. And in 2019, at the end of the year, there was a pipe that burst in the apartments there that caused extreme damage, and there was no one coming to fix it. So the community members in that area organized and really got attention to like what was happening in this housing area. And this MacDougall Terrace has like a long, deep history of Black women organizers organizing for better conditions in this area, as well as less policing. So this is an example of how this is still affecting. I live over here in the West End, where it's like yellow and red. So I live right over here, which is close to Duke, but not close enough, where I still don't have the grocery stores that I need and access to other things that would be a little over here by Duke area. So if we can get back to the slideshow. And yes, in the next slide, the one after this one. Yes, thank you. So also want to talk about other areas. Redlining helps us understand how environmental racism has impacted our communities, but more and more we are faced with drastic representations of why we need environmental justice where we live. From the Flint water crisis to Cancer Alley in Louisiana, the devastation of Hurricane Katrina, we can see that when climate catastrophes hit, it hits working class Black and Brown communities first and hardest. In the next slide. Thank you. Environmental justice is built into the very fabric of Black and Brown communities across this land, be it through redlining, gentrification, or man-made industrial disasters. Climate catastrophe isn't some far-off crisis. It is already happening and has been happening where we live for decades. But it's not just in the water or the broken levees or deep winter freezes. It's also within the carceral state and toxic prisons where environmental justice and abolition meet. And wondering if folks can drop any knowledge that they have about redlining in the areas that they live into the chat, and we can read it out to kind of get some history that we're collecting together. Okay, well, if no one has any examples, it's okay. I'm not gonna force anyone to do anything. We, oh, I didn't find data on the map for Puerto Rico. Okay, let's see if we can figure that out. But we are going, before we dive into abolition, we are gonna take a quick 10-minute break right now. So it is 3:35. We will be back at 3:45, where we will go into abolition in the prison industrial complex. Also want to leave a note that we'll have a Q&A section at the end. So if there are any questions that folks are coming up with, save them and we will have some time to try and answer those questions. See y'all back from break in 10 minutes.
Hey y'all. So we're about to come back. Cool. Here we are. We're back. So, question for y'all as we're returning and getting our minds present in this space. What do you see in this photo? Okay, we see wildfire, forest fire. Yeah. What else do you see in this photo? I'm seeing some firefighters fighting the fire, you know, for sure. What else are y'all seeing? A class? Interesting. A class? Oh, wait. Are you saying like class, like classism, or like a teaching class, to clarify? Because yeah. Teaching. Okay. Gotcha. Teaching a class. Any other? One more, maybe? Anyone? POC firefighters. Something. Y'all are some cool people to hang out with during this panel. I'm loving the interaction. Yeah, so we were hitting it on the nail. There's a wildfire. These are some firefighters. Definitely something that probably could be prevented here. And this photo is a photo of incarcerated firefighters in California who risked their lives for as much as $1.45 an hour to face one of the most prevalent forms of environmental crisis that happens today. And yeah, it happens more and more increasingly as the temperatures occur, wildfires. So yeah, this picture just, it just illustrates so much to me. Like, human beings out here fighting climate crisis and getting paid $1.45, and these people are just so much wrong here. But that is what that example that we're going to get to, and talking more about abolition and the connections with environmental conditions that we live in. Now we're going to play a video from Democracy Now! And this video is about 10 minutes. Would love to just gauge people, like anything, if you learned something or saw something new or something different, or what your reactions are after the video. So please share that in the chat afterwards. But yeah, here we go. Could we pause the video, start it over, and is the volume up for it? And make sure there's closed captions too.
This is Democracy Now! Breaking with Convention. I'm Amy Goodman with Juan Gonzalez as we turn to California, where climate-fueled wildfires are engulfing the state. Crews are battling more than 600 fires that have killed at least 7 people. Governor Gavin Newsom said Monday 300 lightning strikes overnight had sparked 10 new fires. The biggest group of fires in Northern California around Napa is now 25% contained. So far this year, 7,000 fires have destroyed 1.4 million acres, compared to 56,000 acres burned at the same time last year. Tens of thousands of firefighters have been deployed across the state to combat the blazes, which are raging as California also battles a record heat wave and the deadly pandemic. This comes as the state's prison firefighter program, which annually deploys thousands of incarcerated firefighters to the front lines, for just $1 an hour faces diminished numbers because of the coronavirus pandemic. Last month, Governor Newsom ordered the release of some 8,000 incarcerated people, including some from the prison fire camps, as COVID-19 swept through the state's prisons and camps. Several fire camps faced COVID outbreaks in July. Now, as advocates demand mass release for incarcerated people at risk to the pandemic, more than 1,300 incarcerated firefighters are currently fighting the blazes ravaging California. One of the state's 44 prison camps, the fire prison camps, Delta Conservation Camp in Northern California, is battling the fires with a crew of 55 incarcerated firefighters compared to the camp's 132-person capacity. Over the weekend, Democracy Now! Reached former incarcerated firefighter Marty Vinson by phone. He was stationed at Delta Camp in 2018, where Democracy Now! First met him. In an interview, Vincent called the prison firefighting program California's piggy bank and spoke out about the conditions firefighters at Delta Conservation Camp are currently facing.
I imagine the worst. I honestly do. I feel like I can imagine them working much longer hours. So we normally do 24 on, 24 off. I can imagine doing anywhere, because it's possible. You can do it 48 to 72 hours. It's just so many things that go on out there, regardless if it's natural things that can kill you, or let alone a human being that's making a decision that can possibly kill you. But I believe this is probably the worst conditions, and the firefighters are probably going through their worst experience ever.
That's Marty Vinson, formerly incarcerated firefighter. To see our whole interview with him at Delta Conservation Camp, go to democracynow.org. The prisoner firefighter shortage has laid bare California's reliance on prison labor to keep its ever-growing wildfire season at bay, an exploitive system many have called slave labor. California saves up to $100 million a year by using prison labor to fight its biggest environmental problem. And once released, it's nearly impossible for formerly incarcerated firefighters to get jobs with county or city fire departments in California. For more, we go to Oakland, where we're joined by activist and formerly incarcerated firefighter Rashid Lockhart. He's a firefighter at San Quentin State Prison. He was released in January. He's an organizer with the group Planting Justice in Oakland. Welcome to Democracy Now!, Rashid. It's great to have you with us. Can you talk about what's happening right now? California is talking about a firefighter shortage because prisoner firefighters, a number of them have been released due to COVID or are sick with COVID. Explain what's going on and the fact that they make $1 an hour if they're healthy enough to fight the fires.
Yeah, so these conditions, they're implorable. You have, I believe it's 600 less firefighters this year, and we're facing some of the largest wildfires that we've ever had in the state. These guys are out 24, 48 hours at a time. That young man came from Delta Camp. That camp, I just talked to somebody there, and they're leaving at 5 o'clock in the morning, not getting back till 8 o'clock at night. And this is every day. So they're being overworked. And for, $1 an hour, they're working alongside firefighters that are incarcerated people that are making, we don't know how much, and putting their lives on the lines. And it's just, it's a little bit of a human tragedy. They're battling COVID-19 and they're battling wildfires at the same time.
Rashid, I wanted to ask you about Kamala Harris, so the nominee of the Democratic Party for vice president. When she was Attorney General of California, she advocated against early release programs for incarcerated people because it would reduce the number of incarcerated firefighters. Could you talk about her role in this whole issue of the politics of how to deal with the incarcerated and the fighting of fires in California?
Yeah, well, the fact is, it impacts our state economy, right? They're saving $100 million a year on having formerly incarcerated individuals fighting these fires. And it's a little bit of a slap in the face to those of us who are incarcerated, who are trying to, be the best that we can be and put our lives on the lines to go out here and fight these fires. But, her doing that and being a part of mass incarceration as, the district attorney, she she essentially is signing people up for slavery, right? You want these guys to go out and fight these fires and do it for only $1 an hour. And then you're turning around and saying, oh, we don't want to release anybody because, you know, it's going to cost the state this much. It's implorable.
Came out, and later when she became senator, she said that it was her prosecutors who argued this in court. She said she thought it was reprehensible, not at the time. She said she didn't know about it, but said the buck stops with her, and so she took responsibility. It's unclear if she knew about it. But this whole issue of firefighters like you come out of prison, you're extremely experienced. CAL FIRE sings your praises because you're doing the most difficult work, yet you find it so difficult to then to become a firefighter. Like right now, for the many people who are released, even perhaps early because of the COVID pandemic, why don't they just immediately hire you, since you have the experience, you fought these fires at CAL FIRE salaries? Not to mention giving more money to the prisoner firefighters.
Yeah, that's the question, right? I mean, you take like myself, I was a lead engineer on a Type 1 fire engine and a lead on an ambulance crew. I don't know what more qualification you would need, right? That should automatically entitle me to go right into a department upon my release, but that's just not the case. They, you know, for like me being more of a municipal firefighter, they want us to have EMT certifications, and state law right now currently blocks me from getting that.
Because you were formerly in prison?
Because I was formerly in prison, yes. And if right now, like we're hearing CAL FIRE get on these interviews and say that we just lack resources. Well, what they're not saying is we lack the incarcerated firefighters. That's the issue, right? Because we make up the backbone of the firefighting department. And if we're saving the state $100 million, how much more can we save the state by taking formerly incarcerated people coming out of these fire camps, coming out of these firehouses, and putting them right into employment?
Isn't that such a great question? Right? So I'm wondering what y'all are feeling. How was there anything from this video that you learned or for the first time, or something that remind you of in your own community? Yeah, any reactions to the video?
This is Democracy Now! Break.
Yeah. Okay, no responses? That's great. Pass it to you, Kyla, so that we can continue our, oh, wait, there is a response. Yeah, we have, sorry, I should have gave y'all more time. I'm a slow typer in chat myself. Yeah, not saying I'm slow, but I grew up in California, and it is very frustrating. We know this from personal living in California. Thanks for sharing that. I didn't know about this. They're saving our lives, but we can't save their. I understand the wariness, but this is horrible for sure. Yeah, as a Californian, I'm enraged when I think about this. So we have some people from California who have a shared experience about this. People learning something new. Yeah. I too feel that of like, they're saving our lives, we can't save theirs. Or like, and also just the fact of, yeah, it's just completely just outrageous. I just can't find even no nice words. To know that the state knows what they need. Oh no, that they need more firefighters, but would rather keep imprisoning Black and brown people. Sorry, really slow typer. Oh, all good. Me too. Yeah, that just, the exploitation. I really felt in the video when that statement of like, I felt a comparison of like slavery and $1. Okay. Yeah. Thank y'all for sharing. Kyla, I'm passing to you.
Awesome. Thank you, Destiny. I am going to now talk about abolition. Really love that video, and yeah, can't believe in the ways that labor is exploited. It seems like different ways are thought of every single day and have been thought of. But I got this definition right here from Critical Resistance, which is an organization that was formed in 1997 when activists were challenging the idea that imprisonment and policing are a solution for social, political, and economic problems. And they came together, organized a conference that examined and challenged what we have come to call the prison industrial complex. So I will read this out loud. It is long, but I really love the whole thing. Prison industrial complex, also known as the PIC. Abolition is a political vision with the goal of eliminating imprisonment, policing, and surveillance, and creating lasting alternatives to punishment and imprisonment. From where we are now, sometimes we can't really imagine what abolition is going to look like. Abolition isn't just about getting rid of buildings full of cages. It's also about undoing the society we live in, because the prison industrial complex both feeds on and maintains oppression, inequalities through punishment, violence, and control of millions of people. Because the prison industrial complex is not an isolated system, abolition is a broad strategy. And an abolitionist vision means that we must build models today that we can represent how we want to live in the future. It means developing practical strategies for taking small steps that move us forward, making our dreams real, and that lead us all to believe that things really could be different. It means living this vision is in our daily lives. Abolition is both a practical organizing tool and a long-term goal. And I really like that definition because to me, it really shows that abolition is big and a broad strategy, and there are many places that we can insert to change, as well as it's a long-term goal. We know policing and prisons are not going to be gone tomorrow. And as well, people have been working on this for decades and decades and decades. And we have decades and decades of more work to put in. So the next slide, we're going to talk about the prison industrial complex in the sense of the big beast. So I used to work at Southerners on New Ground, and we were getting into the End Money Bail campaign and really studying about what is the PIC. And there is this graphic, which I really, really love, that basically was created with us to map out like how the prison industrial complex is bigger than police and jails, and is interconnected in multiple ways. So at the top left is the ideologies of that feed the prison industrial complex and created it. So as we see the ideologies, we have white supremacy, imperialism, heteropatriarchy, capitalism, and neoliberalism. Sorry, my mouth gets twisted. I think it's because it's from the South and I talk slow, but I love it. And after we go to the ideologies on the left, we move to the other wing where we have the manifestations. And then this person with the wings is corporations, the right wing, and criminalization, dragnet, and all things that are upholding the prison industrial complex. So the right-wing corporations uphold these ideologies to create these manifestations. And we have on the right, the manifestations are the enslavement of African people, Jim Crow, war on drugs, internment, deportation, and border militarization. And also want to note that this graphic does not reflect all of the manifestations that are being upheld by these ideologies. So we have the right-wing corporations uphold these ideologies. So we have the red, and we go to the ideologies that are in the manifestations, and we move, they uphold these through the funnel of policing. So we have this funnel that this um, bird person is standing on. That is the funnel of policings, which includes jails, prisons, court, house arrest, detention, border wall, probation, money bail, and ICE, refugee camps. And then under these ones that we have, there are other institutions that uphold carceral control that we don't think about. So we have foster systems, shelters, mental health institutions, halfway houses, separate nuclear housing, and some warrant clinics. I do know some warrant clinics are upheld by organizations, and some are held by the city. So I know that was a lot of information. I want to take a breath before I move into how people are attacking this prison industrial complex to see if there are any questions on the ideologies to manifestations. What is ALIC? I have to pull this graphic up too because it's a little small for me. It's one of the legs of the person. It's the American Legislation Exchange Council. Any other questions about the top of the graphic? Okay, awesome. I also want to add from stuff that is not reflected in here is like a lot of the surveillance things. So I know in my city, there's like ShotSpotter, which is this surveillance where it could connect, it can hear a gunshot and it will automatically send police there. And I know in Detroit, there's Project Greenlight where you can get cameras. You can sign up to get cameras at your business, which will also go straightly to the police. So there's also a lot of like tech and surveillance things that are policing that aren't reflected up here. Let me look at the chat. Allison says they do a lot around privacy. ALEC does a lot around privatizing state prisons and developing sorting bills that push people into prisons. And they hold a lot of lobbying power. Thank you so much, Allison, for adding that. And yeah, want to invite people to add any other things that you see. Okay. So I want to move towards like the bottom. Oh, back to the last slide. The bottom of the graphic of like, it's the bottom right corner is talking about what folks are doing. And at the time it mentions Mi Gente, which is an organization that is a sister organization of Southerners on New Ground and fighting against immigration. And at the time, they had a campaign called Not One More Deportation. And now they have a campaign which is around Take Back Tech, which is really attacking how Amazon and other digital companies are like selling information to ICE for them to be able to catch people and identify people. There's also M4BL on the corner, which currently has the defund the police movement that uprised after George Floyd, and also working on the Breath Act, as well as Song was working and is working on currently cutting money bail, breaking up and shrinking police and ICE collaborations, as well as decriminalizing quality of life violations. And quality of life violations, we see, are illegal actions that people are committing to survive. Wondering if folks want to drop in the chat any other campaigns or group of folks who are attacking the PIC, this huge beast, in any of the ways through policing, jail, court, prison, ICE detentions. If you can drop that in the chat, and I'll give folks a couple of moments. Okay, we have a question. Could the generalization of Republicans, example Trump supporters, be increasing conflict? Kind of like saying all Trump supporters are racist, etc. I am not sure about your question. Destiney, are you? Could you?
Awesome. Yeah, not sure.
Could you say more about your question? Oh, you asked because I have the person in the image. I believe when this image was made, Republicans were in power. So it's representing like who is holding the power, and not like individuals of Republicans, but specifically like the party and who's holding power at the moment. And yeah, I'm not sure about the conflict part of the question, but I feel like there's like intense conflict as Republicans mainly don't vote towards the people, or Democrats for that option. Neither of them vote for the people. So there's already a lot of conflict in my personal opinion. We have another IDK. I think all Trump supporters are racist, but could just be me. I have no comment. Are there any ways that people in their communities are involved in abolitionist campaigns or groups? I know last year when we had the defund movement after George Floyd, there were protests in every single state. And were really a lot of ways where people could get involved in abolition. So wondering if any folks have seen it in their community, or are know any of their friends want to raise up those things. And if not, we can move on. But want to give like 1 to 2 minutes just to give a shout out to any campaigns. And then I'm going to go into more deeply in a campaign. Okay, cool. So I want to, oh, I see one, yay. Chicago Community Jail Support offers support supplies to people and their families as they're being released. Thank you, Abby. Shout out to Chicago Community Jail Support. And if there's any other ones, I'll just read them as they come along. I do want to talk about this campaign called No New Jails NYC. I know there are a couple of No New Jails campaigns, one in DC and other places in the area, but would like to talk about this campaign. In 2015, June 2015, Khalif Brodder tragically died after his incarceration for years as a teenager on Rikers Island, accused of stealing a backpack, a crime he did not commit. Khalif's death inspired and I think pushed local grassroots activists to mobilize to shut down Rikers immediately via the campaign to shut down Rikers, because we know that jails do not keep people safe and are not rehabilitations areas, and jails and prisons kill people. In 2019, after protests by local organizers, the facility's deadly conditions, Mayor de Blasio pledged to close the correctional facility. In response, Councilman Costa, Constant 10 Days introduced the Renewable Rikers Plan to transform the island into a hub for renewable energy. If successful, the plan would allow for the closure of toxic plants placed in low-income communities of color in the Bronx and in Upper Manhattan. In this way, the plan is a move towards healthier, greener future for New York City. And this act has been applauded by climate activists and organizations. But in the closing of Rikers Island, the city also approved 4 new jails. Boo. And to open up to take place of Rikers. So the plan actually uses sustainability to perpetrate systematic racism and displacing the issue of poor conditions and policing to new environments rather than addressing the root cause of crime. And this plan is basically telling folks that we believe in creating a new world and we believe in saving this world, but since you're in jail, have committed a crime or have just been charged with a crime, whether you're guilty or not, you don't deserve to be in this new world that we're creating. Which is literally horrible. Wondering if folks have any thoughts of like how, no new jails, New York fought to get Rikers closed, and Rikers is being closed, but being closed and turned into a renewable source, but they're building 4 new jails to house people. So in the guise of like shrinking the PIC, they're actually giving something to environmental activists to create a renewable source, but still taking away from people and still wanting to cage people into cages. And building 4 new jails because of one. Oh, we have a person, Jackie or JC, I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce your name, used to live a few blocks away from Rikers. Another example, a local example, in the Durham County Jail, which is not a prison, it's a jail. So folks are just supposed to be held there to be able to go back to court if they're trusted. If you're trusted that you'll come back to court, you're not in the jail. And if you're not trusted, you're in the jail. And as we've talked about, a lot of that decision making is through race and class. But the Durham County Jail has mold, as well as has expired contracts with food places that are giving expired food and really horrible conditions. And folks have been organizing to change those conditions. There have been, in the last 10 years, 13 to 14 people who have passed away in the Durham, that we know of, who have passed away in the Durham County Jail. And just want to reiterate that we know that jails and prisons do not keep us safe. They are not rehabilitation places, and no one belongs in cages. Okay, so yes, Destiney, period. Thank you. I hope I'm having some snaps. I really wish I could see people. I hope we're snapping in our rooms, on our Zoom calls, but no one belongs in cages, period. True, they treat prisoners so poorly. Yes, everywhere. I also would love to offer a language of people who are incarcerated versus prisoners. And we have some claps. And we have some more claps. Thank y'all. We have made it to our second break, and we're going to take a break for 10 minutes, and then we will come back and we will talk about the intersections and the bottom line, as well as talk about our own communities and use some more Padlets. Thank y'all for listening. And we have about an hour and a half left to go. We will see y'all back from break at 4:32. Hi, everybody. We are returning back. The break is over. If you hear my voice, if you can come back to your seat, get comfy. I hope you were able to take care of yourself. Grab some water, a snack. If not, take time to do that. And we are about to go more into the intersections of abolition and environmental justice. I really would love to take this time for folks to see if they can get any connections that they know of, whether like personal connection from where you live or your family. I want to drop the environmental justice definition in the chat again and read it. So environmental justice means civil treatment and meaningful involvement of all people regardless of national origin, color, race, or income, with admiration to the development, exercise, and application of environmental laws, regulations, and policings. And abolition is working to abolish modes of policing, as we see as the police, jails, and prisons. But as we also know from the graphic, how policing spreads out to more ICE detentions, house arrest, technology, tech companies selling our information and selling undocumented folks information so ICE can pick them up, and wanting to see if folks see any intersections. And to remind folks of the example we had with no new jails, where Rikers is being closed and turning into a hub for renewable energy, but they're building 4 new jails. As well as the example from Durham of the conditions in the Durham County Jail, where we see mold, where we have expired food, etc. Also want to add one thing that wasn't on the graphic, but I know folks are working on is SROs, which it's called SROs where I'm at, school resource officers, but basically like police in schools and police in middle schools, elementary schools, high schools. And I know Freedom Inc. had a campaign, no cops in school, cops out of school. And we have a local campaign working to get SROs out of school, but also like the school to prison pipeline, if folks are seeing any intersections or if folks need more explanation. So I'm gonna give folks a couple of moments to think. The PIC is huge.
Kyla, can I make a request? Could we bring up the image of how the prison industrial complex and like how its ideologies and like all of the human bird image, it would help me to think about the intersections of environmental justice having a visual too.
Yes, thank you for asking for what you need. Can you put us on slide 19? And also, we have the graphic dropped in the chat if folks want to look at it there. But if we can go to slide 19. Thank you, thank you.
Kyla, can I get from you to share some intersections as we're waiting for people to drop some in the chat?
Of course, I would love for you to.
Thanks. Intersections, y'all, it's all together. It's all together. It's one of like our fight of that. Yeah, an intersection I'm seeing is thinking about the example that you were sharing on is my video not on?
No.
It's not. But it is for me. Okay. What about now?
Yeah, it's on now.
Odd. Okay, hey y'all. Saying me. Yeah, so what was I even saying now? We were talking about intersections. That's easy to come back to a thought. Is thinking about I'm originally from Dallas, Texas, born and raised until I moved to North Carolina 6 years ago. And growing up in Dallas, Texas is extremely a lot of like obvious areas where wealth is and where wealth is not. And the gap of resources is huge, especially for myself and the community that I was in, that is mostly Black and Latinx. It is a continuous thing of finding good food. It's a close proximity. You got a KFC, you got all of the Mickey D's, you got all the different the fast food restaurants that could also then harm our bodies close in proximity to us. And that's the environment in which we lived in. And thinking also about the fact people are incarcerated and are going through and getting molded food, like have a contract with a company on molded food is like, to me, almost the same of like the contracts of people putting disproportionately fast food restaurants that would affect my community's health in close proximity. So when you knew that my poor and working class single mom who had 3 children that she needed to feed, you knew that, oh, okay, I could go here and my family could get fed. And that's good, very privileged to even be able to go get that food. But at the same time, the food that we were getting in close proximity that was easy, readily available to us is an environmental injustice issue. Like at the root of it, the food that we eat, or the lack of food that we can eat, or the lack of proximity to food really is an environmental injustice issue, and like what food you can and cannot reach to. And I found that to be a similar trend when I moved over here to the East Coast. I'm living in Greensboro, North Carolina, where you have bless you, where you have so many people having to go like 10 miles plus very, very far to even get to a grocery store. Those were some intersections that like I've seen in like my growing up in here. Oh, I'm seeing some more in the chat. Cool. I'm gonna read these. U.S. military, war, and imperialism seems like abolitionist and environmental justice issues, right on the target. Not the money, because that's capitalism. I was kidding. Okay. Thinking about Texas, I saw this clip on John Oliver a few weeks ago about the lack of air conditioning in a lot of prisons. Heck yeah. We're experiencing record heat waves across the country due to climate change, and people who are incarcerated in those prisons / jails without air conditioning are literally being tortured by the heat. Y'all, this stuff just really gets up under my skin, because at the root of it, where also I'm thinking about abolition, is the fact that no one deserves. No one deserves to have to suffer based off of just simply where you live, where you call home, or where you like to hang out at. But passing it back to you guys.
Thank you, Destiny. Yeah, thank you so much. And yeah, just want to say a note on what you're saying about the food and the contracts is that the companies just don't care. Like they literally just want the money from the contracts. And I know what we found out, and I think this is for most jails and prisons. I may be wrong, but there has to be a certain amount of people for it to run. So a certain amount of people have to be in a jail for there to be people to get money from these contracts, and how like the sheriffs in making deals with these folks and deals with the devil. If you think the devil is bad, not saying that I do, but people are making deals with the devil for money and for profit. Oh, we have another intersection, AG. Another intersection is how many prisons are built on toxic sites. So the people incarcerated are not just poisoned with rotten food or tortured by heat, but literally living where there is polluted water or near radiation. And AG dropped a link. Yeah, I was really shocked when I was reading up about Rikers being built on a toxic waste land in the first place. And that's really evil for folks to even decide to do that. But if don't have any more connections, I am going to pass it to you, Destiny, to give us the bottom line.
Cool. So let's get into it. I bet we all feel this bottom line, but let's say it explicitly out here. Environmental justice and the prison industrial complex were manifested by racial capitalism. And the bottom line is that our bodies as people have continued to be devalued over profit. And true change in the environment that we live in, that we call home, and the air that we breathe, and the places that we occupy can only change if we are not exploiting lives in the planet that we live on. Black and brown communities are affected by environmental justice disproportionately, and these beautiful people are exploited in the jails, prisons, and ICE detentions at very high rates. We know these things to be true, and the work that needs to be done truly is just rethinking about profit and really valuing care for ourselves, care for our community, and also care for the earth in which we inhabit. And I want to get into a little bit personally about each one of these, and curious what these look like also for yourself and the communities you live in and things you want to embody too. But care for ourselves, getting to that, looks like intentional relationships. So we check in and we ask ourselves, from our entire body, from top to bottom, how am I feeling? What's going on? I find myself not doing this a lot. It is a practice that I'm trying to bring and encourage anyone else to join me in that as well. And when we were having that conversation and doing organizing or whatever type of work that you are involved in, I really want to encourage you to do that body scan, like in work or in practice, in school or at home, or just walking down the street. Been doing things just like, how are you feeling about it? And let's not stop there about how we feel about it. I want to encourage us to also, once we get that answer from our bodies, really be like, okay, that's how we're feeling, or this is how I need to adjust, or this is how I need to show up in order to preserve ourselves. We need to preserve ourselves, and we also need to uphold our boundaries and encouraging that in our interactions with other people, and the way that we treat ourselves. Going into care within our communities. Actually, before I go there, what are people thinking about for care for ourselves? What are other things that people want to do for themselves, for care for ourselves? Any thoughts? Another way I would also phrase this, if this would help you in thinking, is in order to show up as the best version of myself in my community, what do I need to do for myself? Eating when my body needs it, getting enough sleep. Woo! The eating and the sleeping, I tell you. Anything else? Drinking water. The H2O. For me, I need to be outside, and I need, to be able to like ask for what I need in spaces that I'm in. Stretching. If anything else come up for you, just feel free to drop it in the chat. Going into care within our communities. Care within our communities has to look like offering the support that we can give and staying committed to our collective state and freedom. And doing this with the lens of, I know I can't do this alone. That we need each other as a collective. And the necessary change for everyone will only occur if we're doing it in that way as a collective. Because change will not, the change at the magnitude that we need, will not come unless we're collective and not divided. And that also, that we have unlearning to do from the historical harms of racism, class, white supremacy, you name it. We have true unlearning to do. And that we need in our community to give a hand, a shoulder, whenever we may fall short. Instead of shame and cancellation, it's as a alternative. I'm advising, a shoulder, a good talk, because through unlearning, these systems have continued to, for me, make the way that I think my options are very limited. The way that I interact sometimes with people or not, and very limited. And what I'm saying is like, we need us all. we don't need no limits in the ways that we build community. And the last one around care for the earth. Care for the earth needs to look like seeing and being connected with the trees, the water, the soil, the earth as a whole. And then understanding that us as living beings on this planet are codependent of each other's survival. And what this looks like is, to me, starting with giving land back to Indigenous people and fostering the wisdom of people who've been residing on this earth for generations. And is way more than just recycling, reusing, or being vegan or biking, which, if you're doing those things, great for you. The biking, I started recently, but those legs, sometimes it's exercise, but whatever it is for you, continue doing that. But I really want to encourage people to do just more and more in their communities and continue to do so. It's also including our voices and our bodies and our vote to shift and alter the reality in which we live in, because our survival truly depends on it. And it's not just the survival of me, the survival of the people on the Zoom. It's the survival of literally all of us on this earth. Depends on it. Regardless if that's because of like direct climate change or my Black and brown siblings being incarcerated, hey, and being police, I just want to get to this place where I don't have to fear a police officer getting behind me type of things is what I mean by our survival depends on it. So yeah, wanna bring to the chat an invitation for all three of those areas of care. What could care look like in or does look like in your community? What could and or does care look like in your relationship to the earth and yourself? Any reflections? And I know we don't have music, so I'm gonna sing us a song for a minute to get us, thinking. I'm just kidding. I can't sing a song, y'all. I'm just kidding. But any thoughts y'all have about care for ourselves, care for our community, and care for the earth?
Can we drop the Padlet link again so I can put a picture? I think I don't have words, but I have a picture of what I think of care.
Oh yeah, let's do that. What does it look like? Drop in the Padlet. And the question that's using the Padlet that we're going to ask is, what could your community look like, or what could our communities look like if we held care more than profit? So let's pull up the Padlet. Cool. So the Padlet's been dropped in the chat if anyone wants to join us. And we're looking there and answering the question of what our communities could look like if we held closer care than profit. Oh, we have someone shared. Community, sharing our concerns with others and working together, for sure. I would love to see that in my community as well. People are typing in the Padlet, nice. Care, it would mean we would raise kids with values of love and community versus whoa, it moved. Okay, thank you. Versus growing them up in competition, profit culture. Absolutely, absolutely. Definitely starts with our children. Well, at a young age, or it can start at a young age. I see another one that says everyone would have access to food, housing, art, education. We would know one another and be accountable to each other. Y'all, this is the world I'm trying to live in, okay? Y'all are giving it to me. Okay. What? Another one. And the question, I'm gonna raise the prompt again, is what could our communities look like if we held care closer than profit? Oh, I see a pic over here. It's two people greeting each other. It's nice and sunny out there in person. I love it. There seems to be some excitement, like, hey! What's good? That's the community I'm trying to be in too. And another comment. I'm not sure how it would look like, since I guess I've never lived in one, but I hope it's a world of love and not hatred. I'm gonna speak to that one directly because I feel that. It was this person earlier this year, because I remember starting this year with this in my mind. I don't remember the person or the exact quote, but what was being expressed is that when slavery occurred and colonization is happening here, the first thing that they really took away from us was our imagination. And that could be a direct quote from someone else, but someone shared that with me. And I'm just like, whoa, I feel that. And I feel close to like what was shared of not being sure what it looks like, but still that willingness of like imaginative of like, but this is what I would hope it would look like, or what I would want it to be. And I'm loving to be in that space with you. Okay, I think that people have shared what they have imagined and what it could look like. I want to share with you verbally what it could look like for me and my family and in my community. Honestly, I just imagine a large community garden. I love gardening. I love planting. Oh, there's a picture of my backyard, by the way, here on the palette. There's some corn. I'm growing some corn. And yeah, I just imagine a huge community garden where like people come and they play music, people come and pick up the vegetables, the herbs, whatever is growing in that garden for their families. And we're there, we're asking each other questions of like, hey, did you see this happening? So we're all aware about what's going on in our community, not to gossip, but just, I need you to know what's going on here because you live here type of vibes, and just some hymns being sung, some songs going, and yeah, a place where we can truly authentically be ourselves, and know we're showing up that way. That's, hey, let's be imaginative. So that's what I feel and I'm seeing within my community have a desire for. We're going to transition into this video before we open up for Q&A from that's being narrated by Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and regarding the Green New Deal and what years of repair could look like. So yeah, after this video, we're going to do Q&A.
Looking back, it's hard to believe that we've rebuilt our community from the ground up with our own hands. The first seeds were planted way back in the terror and tenderness of the pandemic. And then change bloomed in the streets, in the fire and struggle of the uprisings. Around here, we'll never forget the day that the last prisoners were released, walking out into the arms of their loved ones. The easy part was finding work. The Community Care Corps was always looking for people in those days, whether for universal family care, burying border walls, or green new public housing, going up one pod at a time. Yep, it was a good time for busy hands.
Funny, thinking back to the first wave of the pandemic, that's what you really remember. Hands. Washing, scrubbing, disinfecting, washing again, picturing each other's hands, all the hands that had touched whatever we were touching, the hands that packed the box, that picked the tomato, that planted the seed, the hands that stroked the brow, that said goodbye. The hands were us, all of us. That web of hand to hand, breath to breath relationships was a reminder. We are all entangled, making each other sick, keeping each other alive. that was just one of the lessons of COVID-19. It started in the first great pause, when the smog cleared and the rich fled the cities, when poverty dropped its disguise and racist inequality drew the map of the disease. As the roar of the traffic faded, we arose to birdsong and ambulance sirens. The virus showed us what was truly essential. And we learned again and again that so many of us doing essential work were being treated as sacrificial. From nursing homes to detention facilities, meatpacking plants, and fulfillment centers, the virus exposed the cruelty of these warehouses of efficiency and profit. Then things got worse. In 2023, super droughts led to mega floods. Locusts carved a path across continents and hyper typhoons drove millions from their homes. COVID-23 raced through storm shelters and refugee camps. Supplies ran out again. Meanwhile, dinosaurs roamed the halls of power, bellowing that more sacrifice was needed. But every time they cranked up that rusty old machine called economic growth, the cloud of sickness and death grew.
And we couldn't breathe. Couldn't breathe from the asthma in our polluted communities, from the smoke of those fires. We couldn't breathe with a knee on our necks in the clouds of tear gas as we shouted, "Black Lives Matter." And that is how the virus changed everything. We finally understood that we couldn't keep patching up the same broken systems. We had to build something new. What was needed was a spark. That spark was us. After months of organizing, the viral rent strike was like a starting gun. Then came the essential workers strike. Delivery drivers, street cleaners, and farm workers got together and said, enough. This time, people didn't just clap from their balconies. We flooded into the streets to join together. One of the leaders was Luciela, a young food courier. When a police bullet stole her life, the crowds exploded in size and then exploded again, spreading across borders like a counter-virus. The sparks look different in every country as the wildfire strikes leapt across borders. Economies ground to a halt, this time blockaded by workers. We lost too many young heroes as states brought out the iron fist, but it was no match for the raised fist of solidarity. Soon, authoritarian rulers started to topple like statues, and new governments were suddenly nervous about ignoring the streets. We joined hands and pushed further, launching the years of repair.
The first step was rebuilding the economy around the core of essential work: food and farming, care for young and old, public health. Not to mention the essential labor of the more than human world, the winged pollinators, the leafy oxygen makers. The Full Employment Act made the new priorities clear, and there was a wave of new worker cooperatives in everything from mental health support to public art and tree planting. Many bosses were made redundant. Our information ecology needed tending too, and so we built a digital commons, vaccinated it against surveillance, and built up our herd immunity to disinformation. Fossil fuels were running on fumes by that point, so we harnessed their final profits to clean up their messes. Whatever we could, we did outdoors: school, theatre, celebrating, at first because it was safer, then because we realized it made us happier. Nobody talked about missing shopping. Anyway, the right to repair movement meant that a lot of stuff got fixed rather than thrown away and replaced. With life moving at a slower pace, we finally had time to look back. and we began the most important repair of all, repairing relationships. In colonial countries like the US, Canada, Australia, and the UK, those were hard conversations. But truth and reparations commissions helped some of us face the truth about the violent conquests of the past and how they shaped our world. That guided where we repaired and how. It turned out that once we fully funded schools and housing and healthcare, we didn't need those bloated budgets for policing, prisons, and war. And ultimately, the flow of money on planet Earth had to be reversed. So the North finally started paying its debts, and the South finally stopped.
Around here, the Land Back program began the historic process of returning some of the stolen land to Indigenous jurisdiction. In the process, we remembered how taking care of the earth lays the ground for taking care of each other. Within just a few years, we could see the bottom of the river again, and it was safe to drink and fish in its waters. Things aren't perfect, of course. Between mutating viruses and our warming world, there's always new storms headed our way. But when they come, we're ready. With our networks of nurses and neighbors, our small farms and big forests, our systems of care and repair, no one is sacrificed. Everyone is essential.
Yeah, I totally love that ending in that video overall. No one should be sacrificed, and we are all very important and valuable and essential. How did that video, what did that video bring up for anyone? How did it make you feel? Was it something you enjoyed? Yeah, any reflections? Our actions affect all, totally. They do. Cool. Thanks y'all for watching this video, and I appreciate the reflection in the chat. We're going to move towards Q&A for about 10 minutes. And yeah, there's repair is possible. And it starts with repairing our relationships. Absolutely. Very true. Actually, Kyla, I'm curious, what's something that maybe you took away or you feel out of that video?
I think similar to what AG said, repair is possible, and it starts with repairing our relationships. I think a lot about, when I think about abolition, my first introduction to it was interpersonal relationships and like how I can make those better, and how it's just as attached to like me going to county commissioners meeting and demanding smaller budgets. Like both of those things are attached to each other and working on them at the same time. So I think a lot about repairing relationships and trying not to have the need for my relationships to be repaired, and how I can work towards that.
Yeah. Thanks, Kyla. Okay, opening up for questions. And we can put questions in the Q&A, in the chat. Yeah, but any questions you have for us? Cool. Page raised. How did y'all get started in this work? Great question. Kyla, do you want to answer first? Is that okay?
Yeah, I can start. I unofficially got started in this work because my mom was, is a very sweet lady and cares a lot about her community. So when I was younger, we would like bring stuff to people, like if people needed food or like anything, like that's when I started learning the act of being a part of something bigger than myself and taking care of people. Officially, I met a friend. Her name's D.H. Jackson, also known as Dee, and she's the national director of Black Youth Project 100. We met at this party. It was a fake party because there were only 3 people there, and she was one of the 3 people. And we met, and she would just invite me to things, and sometimes I would come. And eventually, I had to like bring something for the things, and like I just started having more responsibility, and I found myself in the In Money Bell campaign. So that's how I got started. And I'll pass it to you, Destiney.
Cool. Very similar foundation as Kyla, with starting with like family. My mother and my grandmother are very much so the type of people who just not take in, but like are willing to open their homes to any and everybody, just if they need a home. And a lot of my foundation around like how I treat people and want to treat people and know where I want to live in and be treated by started in that relationship and evolved and continues to evolve with like starting with like doing being more of a participant and like protest against police brutality, and moves towards learning more about like the environment that I live in and like how it affects my health and my studies, and started to organize with Sunrise Movement around climate change and getting more involved into like abolition and abolition work in my local community, especially towards like policing. And those were ways that I got into this work. Thanks, Paige. Any other questions about us? Do you have any advice for young people who want to start projects on environmental justice in their own communities and schools? Yes, I like this question. I'm gonna take this one first, Kyla, and I can pass it to you. Is that okay? Cool. Advice. Start with what you're passionate about. And like, for example, if it's like you are an artist and you can craft a mural or a canvas, or if you are a person who enjoys public speaking and talking in front of groups, or a person that can just like offer time, but wherever you are, starting there and being like, hey, getting involved, seeing like what a local organization may be doing around you, or also if it's something like you just see a need for, if you have the ability to just like start a garden inside of an area that may have, not quite a great access to groceries, or like it's not accessible, the grocery store is not accessible, or whatever it is for you. For me, I started Yeah, recycle and reuse presentations in my local library. And also doing that in my college campus around like what is environmental injustice and like how is it impacting us and like what does it look like in our communities right now. But that was because I felt confident in like public speaking, but definitely if I had the ability to craft a mural or craft a poem to share or express the impacts of environmental injustice, I would recommend that too as well. So yeah, Kyla?
I think the only thing that I would add is like talk about it. Like when you find something you're passionate about, talk about it with other people because there's probably other people who are passionate about it as well. And the beautiful thing about organizing is a group of people coming together to change their conditions. And the more you open your mouth and talk about it, the more people will come. And you'll find your crowd and your comrades and folks who you can bound together so you can make change in your school and communities. Thank you, Paige.
For sure. Y'all, we're gonna close in 3 minutes with questions if there's none there or sooner. But definitely want to make space if there is. Yeah, as well as maybe this is a good time to make a plug of our social medias or ways you can stay in contact with us as well. Yeah, my email is Destiny. Destiney@sunrisemovement.org, but also you can hit me up on Instagram too if you want. And it's just my first name, last name with an underscore. So also if there's like a conversation you want to continue to have, feel free to reach out. So yeah, closing with questions then. Okay, pass to you, Kyla.
Awesome. So we have made it to our closing. Want to thank everyone for opting into this workshop and adding to the Padlet and thinking behind your computer and tuning in for this whole time. Really, really grateful that folks were able to come to this workshop as well as like I was able to facilitate this workshop. This is a topic that is new for me and I want to continue deepen and see everywhere. And yeah, I hope that from this workshop, folks are able to continue organizing in the intersections. We have created a reading list that I'm going to drop in the chat. This reading list includes some of the documents that we used to create this workshop, as well as the Padlet that we created, the Big Beast graphic. That is so robotic. It's always scary. But includes the Big Beast graphic, Sunrise's website, Critical Resistance, and a lot of other juicy things. Would definitely love if people would check out the reading list as well as share it with your friends. And I would love to close this workshop off with people putting thank yous. I know that we would not be in this workshop or in this work if there wasn't someone who introduced us, who told us about it, and just want to be more in the practice of thanking our lineage. And I also want to thank the people and the organizations that helped me deepen my abolitionist politic and my environmental justice politic. So going to take a moment. If anybody sent you this workshop, if you can give them a thank you. Anybody who first open you up to abolition, or if it's a TV show or anything, just want to have some origins in the chat where we can give thank you and give flowers to people while they're still alive. So I'm going to put mine in the chat and definitely want to read out these thank yous. Okay, so we have a couple. Oh, we have some from YouTube. Thank you so much, Kyla and Destiney. Thank you, Project Nia. Thank you. I put some thank you to Asada Shakur. Thank you to AG. Thank you to Critical Resistance. Thank you to Southerners on New Ground. Thank you to Jade and Serena. Allison says thank you to their mama and abolitionist freedom fighters all across the globe. We have some more from YouTube. Grateful to my mentor, Adrian. Shout out to you, Adrian, who introduced me to Abolition and TJ. Keep dropping your thank yous. Thank you to our presenter, our teachers, and those who learn and share before us. I'm grateful and receive what I've seen, heard, learned, experienced with humility and honor. Thank you to Peggy Carroll, which is my grandma. Thank you to BYP 100. Thank you to Jails NYC. Shout out to the late Rose Braz, who built strong movement ties. We'll have 2 more minutes for thank yous. Thank you to Critical Resistance, Angela Davis, Destiny's Mama, Nana, and community. Thank you to Allison and AG for making the connections happen and everyone behind the scenes. Yes, thank you for everyone behind the scenes. It is a well-oiled machine and I love it. From AG, big thanks to Destiney and Kyla for holding this down, for Project Nia for helping to bring this together, to Dream Defenders for introducing me to abolition, and to my parents who helped me always believe that we deserve a better world. Paige, thank you to the folks here for sharing space and learning together today. AG, big thanks to the folks holding down ASL. Big thanks to all of our interpreters. Y'all are doing the thing. We have some pluses. Okay, cool. And my last thank you is to everyone here. I thank my side Zoom box to my right and my left, and I thank it to above me and below me. So glad to share space with y'all virtually and for us to work together for this workshop. I hope y'all have a great afternoon and super excited to be in this work beside y'all. Bye.
Bye, y'all.
Thank y'all so much, Destiney and Kyla. Appreciate y'all spending the past couple hours with us, holding it down and bringing together these intersections. And again, thank you to the Barnard Center for Research on Women for supporting us with the live stream, our fiscal sponsor, Flux Factory, and all of our supporters, Ebony with the tech, Paige with the resources, Hope, Sophie, Teddy with the captions, and then of course Cameron, Juan, and Trisha with our ASL interpretation. Appreciate y'all so much. Please check out the Padlet that is linked at the beginning of the recording for more resources from this session, the ones that Kyla and Destiney have so graciously shared with us, and then also those from previous sessions. And then, yeah, like everyone said, enjoy the rest of, well, the start of the weekend, y'all, and get some sun, some time outside, some rest, some naps, all of that. Bye.
Hello. Hey, peace, y'all.